Hello everybody, this is Professor Horlacher, and in this video I'm going to do a short review of issues of rhythm and meter. There's much more material in the e-text, and I'll remind you of those pages at the end of this video. But here's a start on what are the issues we care about when we think about rhythm and meter. Number one, we care about how long something is, a pitch or a rest, its duration. And in Western tonal music, we have a number of symbols to help us do that. This is a quarter note. If the quarter note has two parts to it, we have eighths. If it has three parts to it, we have two ways of dealing with this. I'm going to show you the first one here. This equals a quarter note, and it's triplets, and I'll put a little 3 above it there to show that quarter note is divided into 3 eighth notes beamed together. And we have a series of rests that do the same sort of thing, and I'm sure you've reviewed these both in the text and also during the MFO course. What else do we want to know? We want to know whether a beat has 2 or 3 parts. Here, the beat had 2 parts, and here the beat had 3 parts. This notation is a little bit awkward, always having to show, always having to show the triplets. And so if the beat always has 3 parts, we have a special way of doing that. And this is the distinction of a simple meter. And I think I'll use a blue pen to talk about a compound meter. A simple meter, always the beat has 2 parts. Beat equals 2, like that. So some simple time signatures are 2-4, 4-4, 3-4. However, in a compound meter, the beat has 3 parts. So let's do an example here. I'm going to write out 6 eighth notes in red twice. In one example, I'm going to show that the beat is in 2 parts. The beat has a quarter note, and each quarter note is divided into groups of 2. Over here, my beaming is going to show something quite different. It's going to say that the beat is a dotted quarter note, and that each one of those dotted quarter notes creates 2 beats. So here we have 3 beats, and here we only have 2. So that's another thing we want to know. This would be a bar of 3-4, whereas this would be a bar of 6-8. And often when we see meter signatures whose lower notation is 8 or 12 or 16, that indicates that the beat has 3 parts rather than 2. Okay, what else do we want to know? We want to know how we feel the metrical accents in a measure. So I'm going to go back and talk a little bit about how this one sounds in terms of meter versus this one. They both have a downbeat. Let's see, I think I'll use the blue to show an accent mark here. They both have a downbeat, which is the strongest kind of metrical feeling at the start of the measure. But they have different qualities of accent as the beat continues. So I'm going to speak those out loud in a sort of fake way to show you the difference. Here's a measure of accented and unaccented moments of time in a 3-4 bar. 1 and 2 and 3 and. As opposed to how the accents sound in the 6-8 measure. 1 and a, 2 and a. So we care about those metrical accents. It probably changes the way that we listen to and play music, as you'll see in a little bit. The fourth point I want to make has to do with what we call syncopation. Syncopation is when you get to put an accent on a place that's unexpected. Because we know that downbeats sound accented just because they're downbeats, sometimes composers, there we go, unexpected accents, add accents to places we don't expect. And that creates a really neat feeling called syncopation. We'll look at a Chopin waltz in just a minute that has some lovely syncopation in it. There's a special kind of syncopation called hemiola. And this is when you do every 2 instead when we expect every 3. And there's some good examples in the text for that. Okay, so there's a quick explanation. I'm going to advance to the next slide to look at a syncopation and some meter things in it. So let's go through this bit by bit. And there's a variations link where you can go listen to one of our piano faculty, Professor Milnoff, playing this. So once I'm done discussing, I hope you will go do that. This is a waltz by Frédéric Chopin, 19th century composer who wrote a whole lot of piano music. A waltz is a dance that always has 3 beats in it, and so we see the time signature indicating 3/4, and we know that 3/4 is a simple meter. That means that the beats are going to be divided into 2 parts, not 3. How is it that we know this sounds like a waltz? I'd like to draw your attention here to this bass pattern. This is a really common accompaniment pattern for waltzes and for anything that's in 3/4, and it kind of follows that chunk 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 sort of pattern. And so we hear when that bass line lands on a lower note and then follows it by 2 higher chords, we hear the 1 2 3 1 2 3 1 2 3 in there. And you'll hear that in the performance in just a minute. And so we have durations that tell us how long to play notes. We see that every beat is divided into 2 parts in this particular waltz. We see that the bass line helps us feel where the accents are, and so we feel 3 beats with an accent on the first beat. But Chopin likes to stir things up a little bit for a waltz, and so there's also some lovely syncopation in this piece. Notice that he often, in fact, looks like every 2 bars. I'm going to put a nice red circle around these notes. He brings in the right hand kind of a beat too early. It seems like it can't wait for the bass note to happen over and over again until he gets to here, and all of a sudden, when the right hand is on its highest note, they finally line up. But then that highest note comes in on beat 3. Well, that's a bit confusing. Looks like that there's lots of syncopation in this movement. Lots of chances for the very stable bass to get pushed against by the right hand, and that's what makes Chopin's waltz so beautiful. Okay, last slide. Couple of things you should do next. Number 1, you should go listen to track 15 on the soft chalk, week number 2 schedule. Listen to about the first 30 seconds of this waltz under the variations player. This is Professor Neymoff on our piano faculty playing, and you'll hear how he treats those beats 3 and 1. There's a whole lot of expressive timing he uses to show that the right and the left hand are kind of playing against one another. The second thing you should do is go complete JIT number 3 before your Tuesday drill. Tuesday drill. And that is on course under tests and surveys. Thanks very much, and I'll see you in class.